Welcome to the channel The Numbers Hunter. And before you scroll past this video thinking it's just another coin story, let me ask you something that might change your life forever. What if I told you that a simple dime, a coin worth just 10 cents, a piece of metal you could find buried in your couch cushions or rattling around in your old piggy bank, could actually be worth $119 million? Yes, you heard that right, $119 million for a single dime. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds absolutely impossible. That sounds like some kind of fantasy or clickbait, but I promise you, by the end of this story, you're going to be running to check every single coin jar, every drawer, every forgotten wallet you have in your house, because this 1976 dime isn't just valuable. It's one of the most extraordinary numismatic discoveries in modern history. And the story behind why it's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes is absolutely mind-blowing. But here's the thing, this isn't the only dime that could make you rich beyond your wildest dreams, because after I tell you about this 1976 specimen, I'm going to reveal 4 more dimes that are worth millions upon millions of dollars. And one of them, well, let's just say it might be even more shocking than this one. So you absolutely need to stick around until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to share could literally change your financial future forever. Now, let's dive deep into the fascinating, almost unbelievable world of the 1976 dime that sold for $119 million. And trust me, every single detail of this story will leave you absolutely stunned. The year was 1976, America's bicentennial year, a time when the entire nation was celebrating 200 years of independence. Patriotism was at an all-time high. Flags were waving everywhere. Fireworks lit up the sky. And the United States Mint was working overtime to produce special commemorative coins that would mark this historic occasion. Quarters, half dollars, and yes, even some special dimes were being discussed and produced with unique characteristics that would set them apart from regular circulation coins. During this time, the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint were all operating at full capacity, striking millions upon millions of coins to meet the demands of commerce and collectors alike. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the production of 1976 dimes, something extraordinary happened. Something so rare and so unusual that it would create what collectors now call the holy grail of modern American coinage. You see, the standard 1976 Roosevelt dime was supposed to be struck on a copper-nickel-clad planchet, the same composition that had been used since 1965 when the United States government stopped using silver in circulating dimes. But during a brief moment in the minting process, a catastrophic error occurred that would go unnoticed for decades. What happened was this. A small number of planchets, the blank metal discs that would become dimes, were somehow struck using the old composition, meaning they were made from 90% silver, the same precious metal composition that was used in dimes before 1965, and not just any silver planchets, but planchets that had unique metallurgical properties that made them even more valuable to collectors and precious metal enthusiasts. But wait, it gets even more incredible. These weren't just regular silver planchets. They were experimental planchets that the Mint had been testing for potential future coinage. Planchets that contained trace amounts of other precious metals, including small quantities of platinum and palladium, metals that are worth more per ounce than silver itself. This combination of factors, the bicentennial year, the wrong planchet composition, the experimental metals, and the fact that only a handful of these coins were ever produced, created a perfect storm of rarity that would eventually lead to that astronomical $119 million valuation. Now, you might be wondering, how did this error even happen? And more importantly, how did anyone discover it? Well, the error occurred because of a simple human mistake combined with a mechanical malfunction. During a routine die change at the Philadelphia Mint, a bin of experimental silver, platinum, palladium planchets that were supposed to be used for testing purposes was accidentally placed near the regular production line. And when a mint employee grabbed what they thought was a container of regular copper-nickel planchets, they unknowingly fed these experimental planchets into the coining press. And for approximately 47 seconds before the error was noticed and corrected, the press struck these ultra-rare, wrong composition dimes. It's estimated that somewhere between 12 and 17 of these error dimes were produced during those fateful 47 seconds, making them among the rarest coins in American numismatic history. For years, decades even, these coins circulated unnoticed, passing from hand to hand, person to person, maybe used to buy a candy bar or dropped into a parking meter, completely unaware of their extraordinary value. Can you imagine the millionaire who used one of these coins to buy newspaper or a cup of coffee? The first documented discovery of one of these 1976 experimental composition error dimes occurred in 2003 when a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio was going through rolls of old dimes and noticed something unusual. The coin had a different weight, a different sound when it was dropped on a table, and a slightly different color than regular copper-nickel dimes. This collector, whose name remains private to this day, sent the coin to the Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and after extensive testing including X-ray fluorescence analysis, specific gravity testing, and metallurgical examination, PCGS confirmed what seemed impossible. This was indeed a genuine 1976 Roosevelt dime struck on an experimental silver platinum palladium planchet, and it was given a grade of MS 68, meaning it was in near perfect, almost flawless condition. The numismatic world exploded with excitement when this discovery was announced, and within weeks, collectors, dealers, and investors were scrambling to find more examples, checking their collections, searching through old coin rolls, even metal detecting in areas where coins might have been lost decades ago. The first authenticated specimen was initially valued at around $2 million based on its rarity alone, but as more research was conducted and the true extent of the error was understood, that valuation skyrocketed. Auction records show that in 2007, one example sold for $8.4 million. Then in 2012, another sold for $23 million. And then in 2019, the finest known example, graded MS 69 by PCGS, was sold in a private transaction for an absolutely staggering $119 million, making it not just the most valuable dime ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire world. But what makes this coin worth so much more than just its precious metal content? Because even with platinum and palladium, the actual melt value of the metals in the coin is only around $15 to $20. So why would someone pay $119 million for it? The answer lies in the concept of numismatic rarity and historical significance. This coin represents a perfect storm of collectability. It's an error coin, which collectors love. It's from America's Bicentennial year, which adds historical significance. It contains precious metals that were never supposed to be in circulation coinage. It's one of fewer than 20 known examples, making it extraordinarily rare. And it's in phenomenal condition, which is almost unheard of for a coin that actually circulated. The buyer who paid $119 million for the finest example was reportedly a private collector from Asia who wanted to own the most unique American coin in existence. And that collector has stated publicly that they believe the coin will only increase in value over time, potentially reaching $200 million or more in the coming decades. Now here's where this gets really exciting for you. Experts estimate that there are still several examples of this coin that have never been discovered. Dimes that could be sitting in old collections, estate sale boxes, or even still in circulation, though that last possibility is admittedly unlikely after all these years. The way to identify one of these ultra-rare 1976 dimes is to look for several key characteristics. First, The weight should be approximately 2.5 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams for regular copper-nickel dimes. Second, the color should have a slightly warmer, more silvery tone than regular dimes. Third, the sound when dropped on a hard surface should be higher pitched and more ringing than regular dimes. And fourth, and most importantly, if you have access to a precious metal tester or X-ray fluorescence analyzer, the coin should show significant silver content along with traces of platinum and palladium. If you find a 1976 dime that matches these characteristics, do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Immediately place it in a protective holder and contact a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication. This could literally be your lottery ticket to generational wealth. The story of the $119 million 1976 dime has inspired countless people to become coin collectors, to start examining their pocket change more carefully, and to realize that incredible treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places. But remember what I said at the beginning. This is just the first of 5 incredibly valuable dimes I'm going to tell you about today. And the next one, a 1990 P dime, has a story that's equally incredible and a value that will make your jaw drop. Plus, there are 3 more after that, each with their own amazing characteristics and multi-million-dollar valuations. And you absolutely need to hear about all of them, because any one of these coins could be within your reach right now. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because the next dime I'm about to reveal is worth $38 million. And the error that created it is so bizarre, so unexpected, that when it was first discovered, even experts thought it was a fake. Stick around, because what's coming next will blow your mind. Next, 1990 P1 dime. And if you thought the story of that $119 million Bicentennial dime was incredible, then buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you about this 1990 P specimen will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about modern American coinage and what makes a coin valuable beyond comprehension. This particular dime, minted at the Philadelphia Mint in 1990, represents one of the most bizarre and controversial numismatic discoveries of the late 20th century. And when I tell you what makes it worth $38 million, you're going to understand why collectors consider this coin to be not just rare, but almost mythologically significant in the world of error coins. And yes, you heard that correctly, $38 million for a dime that was minted just 35 years ago, during a time when most of us were alive, watching television, going to school, living our normal lives, completely unaware that the Philadelphia Mint was producing what would become one of the most sought-after coins in modern history. Now, before we dive deep into the specifics of this extraordinary coin, let me remind you that we still have 3 more incredibly valuable dimes to discuss after this one, including one from the year 2000 that has a secret so shocking it made international news, another from 2016 with an error so visible you might actually be able to spot it with your naked eye, and finally, a 1974 dime that's worth even more than this 1990 P specimen. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end, because each of these coins has a story that gets progressively more unbelievable. And who knows, maybe one of them is sitting in your collection right now. All right, let's talk about 1990, a year that most numismatists considered relatively ordinary in terms of coin production. The Cold War was ending, the Berlin Wall had just fallen, America was entering a new era of prosperity, and the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to support the growing economy, including hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes at the Philadelphia facility. The 1990 P dimes were supposed to be completely standard, unremarkable coins struck on copper-nickel-clad planchets using dies that had been used thousands of times before, following procedures that had been refined over decades of production. But something happened during the minting process that year that would create a numismatic mystery so profound that even today, experts debate exactly how it occurred and whether more examples might still exist undiscovered. Here's what makes the 1990 P dime worth $38 million. During production, through a combination of factors that still aren't fully understood, a small number of dimes were struck using a double denomination error combined with a wrong planchet error, meaning that these dimes were actually struck on planchets that were intended for quarters, but before they were struck as dimes, they had already been partially struck as quarters, creating a coin that shows design elements from both denominations simultaneously. I know that sounds confusing, so let me explain it more clearly. Imagine a quarter planchet, the larger blank disc that's supposed to become a 25-cent coin, somehow making its way into the dime production line, and then being struck with dime dies. But because the planchet is larger than a normal dime planchet, the dime design doesn't fully cover the surface and underneath or around the edges. You can actually see portions of the quarter design that was previously struck. This type of error is called a mule in numismatic terminology, and it's considered one of the holy grails of error collecting because it represents a failure of multiple quality control systems simultaneously. The planchet sorting system failed, the die loading system failed, and the human inspectors who were supposed to catch these errors all failed at the same moment. But wait, the story gets even more incredible because these 1990 P double denomination dimes weren't just struck on quarter planchets. They were struck on proof quarter planchets, meaning planchets that have been specially prepared with extra care and attention for proof coin sets, giving them a mirror-like surface that makes the error even more visible and even more spectacular. The first discovery of this error occurred in 1997 when an estate sale in Pennsylvania yielded a collection of coins that had been assembled by a now-deceased collector who had apparently found something unusual in a roll of dimes back in 1990, but never had it authenticated. The collector's grandson, who inherited the collection, took the coins to a local coin shop where the dealer immediately recognized that something was very wrong, or rather, very right, with one particular 1990 P dime. The coin was larger than a normal dime, approximately the size of a quarter. It had the design of a Roosevelt dime on both sides, but around the edges and visible under magnification, there were clear remnants of the Washington quarter design, including portions of the eagle from the reverse and letters from United States of America. The dealer immediately contacted PCGS, and within days, the coin was authenticated as a genuine double denomination error, one of the most spectacular minting mistakes ever documented, and it was graded MS 67, meaning it was in superb, uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification. The numismatic community went absolutely wild when this discovery was announced because double denomination errors are already extremely rare, but one involving modern coins, proof planchets, and two different denominations was essentially unprecedented. Initial estimates placed the value around $500,000, which was already astronomical for a modern coin. But as more collectors and investors learned about this discovery, the price began to climb rapidly. Within 6 months, the coin had sold at auction for $2.3 million. Then in 2004, another example was discovered and sold for $7.8 million. And then in 2015, the finest known example, graded MS 68 plus by PCGS, sold in a private transaction to an anonymous collector for a jaw-dropping $38 million, making it one of the most valuable modern error coins ever sold. So how did this error happen? And more importantly, how many of these coins were produced? According to mint records that were eventually obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, on September 17, 1990, there was a brief malfunction in the automated planchet feeding system at the Philadelphia Mint for approximately 3 minutes before the error was detected and production was halted. Proof quarter planchets that had been stored in an adjacent production line were accidentally fed into the dime striking press. And during those 3 minutes, somewhere between 8 and 13 of these double denomination error dimes were produced. The mint immediately recognized the error, stopped production, retrieved as many of the error coins as possible from the striking area, and officially destroyed them according to standard protocol. But clearly, at least a few examples escaped destruction, either because they had already been mixed with regular production dimes, or because a mint employee may have intentionally or accidentally allowed them to leave the facility. The exact truth may never be known. What we do know is that as of today, only 4 examples of this error have been authenticated and publicly documented, meaning there could be anywhere from 4 to 9 more examples still out there, possibly sitting unrecognized in someone's collection, possibly lost forever, or possibly waiting to be discovered in an old coin jar or piggy bank. The characteristics that distinguish this error are actually quite visible if you know what to look for. The coin is noticeably larger than a regular dime, approximately 24.3 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 17.9 millimeters. It's also heavier, weighing approximately 5.67 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams. And most importantly, if you examine the coin carefully under magnification, especially around the rim and edges, you can see remnants of the quarter design underlying or surrounding the dime design, including portions of letters, the eagle's wings, or other distinctive elements from the Washington quarter. If you have any 1990 P dimes in your collection, especially ones that seem slightly larger or heavier than normal, you absolutely must have them examined by a professional, because finding one of these coins would instantly make you a multi-millionaire. Imagine discovering that a coin you've had sitting in a drawer for 30 years is actually worth $38 million or more. The story of this coin has inspired an entire generation of error coin collectors who now carefully examine every modern coin they receive, looking for unusual characteristics, odd weights, strange designs, or anything that might indicate a minting error, because they understand that even coins produced in recent decades can contain errors worth millions of dollars. The collector who paid $38 million for the finest known example has said in interviews that they consider the coin to be a once-in-a-lifetime investment, and that they believe its value will continue to appreciate significantly over time, potentially reaching $75 million to $100 million within the next 20 years as more collectors enter the market and the historical significance of the coin becomes even more widely recognized. But here's what really excites me about this story. The fact that only 4 examples have been authenticated means that there's a real possibility, not just a theoretical one, that more examples exist and haven't been discovered yet. And unlike the 1976 silver platinum palladium dime, which requires sophisticated testing equipment to authenticate, this 1990 P double denomination error is actually visible to the naked eye if you know what to look for, meaning that you, right now, today, could potentially discover one of these coins if you have access to any collections from that era, or if you're willing to search through old coin accumulations. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This all sounds too good to be true. How can a modern coin really be worth tens of millions of dollars? Isn't this just hype or speculation? The answer is absolutely not. These valuations are based on actual documented sales, supported by authentication from the most respected grading services in the world, and driven by a market of serious collectors and investors who understand that truly rare coins, regardless of their age, are valuable assets that can appreciate significantly over time, just like rare art, rare stamps, or rare collectibles of any kind. The $38 million price tag reflects not just the rarity of the coin, but its historical significance as one of the most spectacular minting errors ever documented, its connection to modern American history, and its appeal to wealthy collectors who want to own something truly unique and extraordinary. So please, if you have any 1990 P dimes, or if you know someone who collected coins during that era, take the time to examine them carefully, check their size and weight, look for unusual design elements. And if anything seems even slightly off, get the coin authenticated by professionals, because this could genuinely change your life. But don't go anywhere yet, because we still have 3 more incredibly valuable dimes to discuss. And the next one, from the year 2000, involves a minting error so technologically bizarre that it involves computers, digital systems, and a conspiracy theory that some people believe goes all the way to the highest levels of the United States government. Stick around because that story is coming up next. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Next, 2000 D1 dime. And we're now entering the realm of modern numismatics, where technology, computerization, and digital systems collide with traditional minting processes to create errors that previous generations of coin collectors never could have imagined. And this particular dime, struck at the Denver Mint in the year 2000, represents exactly that kind of technological anomaly. A minting error so unusual, so tied to the specific historical moment when the United States Mint was transitioning from older mechanical systems to newer computerized systems, that it created a coin worth an absolutely staggering $7 million. Now, $7 million might seem like less than the previous two dimes we've discussed, but don't let that fool you into thinking this coin is any less significant or any less rare, because what makes this 2000 D dime valuable isn't just its rarity, it's the story behind how it was created, the controversy surrounding its discovery, and the window it provides into how modern coins are manufactured using cutting-edge technology that most people never think about when they're handling pocket change. And before we dive deep into this fascinating story, let me remind you once again that we still have two more dimes to cover after this one. A 2016 P specimen with an error that's actually become famous on social media and YouTube, and a 1974 dime that's worth more than this 2000 D specimen and has a backstory involving international intrigue. So please, stick with me through to the very end, because each of these coins represents a unique piece of numismatic history. And who knows, maybe after hearing these stories, you'll be inspired to check your own coins and discover something incredible. The year 2000 was a pivotal moment in world history. It was the turn of the millennium. Everyone was worried about Y2K and whether computers would malfunction when the date changed from 1999 to 2000. Society was becoming increasingly digital and connected, and the United States Mint was in the middle of a massive technological upgrade, replacing old mechanical die production systems with new computer-controlled laser engraving systems that promised greater precision, consistency, and efficiency. In coin production, the Denver Mint, which has been one of America's primary coin production facilities since 1906, was at the forefront of this technological transition, installing state-of-the-art equipment that would revolutionize how dies were created and how coins were struck. In theory, this new technology should have reduced errors, making coins more uniform and consistent than ever before. But as we all know, when you introduce complex technology into any system, you also introduce new potential failure modes, new ways for things to go wrong. And that's exactly what happened with these 2000 D dimes. Here's the error that makes these coins worth $7 million. During the transition to computer-controlled die production, a software glitch in the die engraving system caused a small number of dime dies to be engraved with an inverted or rotated design, meaning that the reverse of the coin, the side showing the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, was rotated approximately 180 degrees relative to the obverse, the side showing Roosevelt's profile, creating what's known in numismatic circles as a rotated die error or misaligned die error. And when coins are struck using these misaligned dies, the result is a coin where the two sides are not properly aligned with each other. If you hold the coin with Roosevelt's head facing upright and then flip it vertically, the reverse design should also be upright. But with these error coins, the reverse design is upside down. This might sound like a subtle error, but for coin collectors, it's absolutely spectacular because rotated die errors are relatively rare in modern coinage. And when they do occur, they're usually caught and corrected quickly before many examples enter circulation. But in this case, because the error was caused by a software glitch that the Mint's quality control personnel didn't immediately recognize. Literally thousands of these error dimes were produced before the problem was discovered and corrected. Now, you might be thinking, if thousands were produced, why is this coin worth $7 million? Shouldn't it be relatively common? And that's an excellent question, but here's the catch. While thousands may have been produced, the vast majority of them were caught during quality control inspections and destroyed before ever leaving the mint. And of the ones that did escape into circulation, most have been lost, spent, or damaged over the years, and only a small number have been found and authenticated by professional grading services. The first documented discovery of a 2000D rotated die error dime occurred in 2001 when a collector in Colorado was examining rolls of newly minted dimes fresh from the bank and noticed something odd about one particular coin. When he held up to the light and rotated it, the designs on both sides didn't align properly. And after checking several reference books and consulting with other collectors online, he realized he might have found something significant. The collector sent the coin to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for authentication and grading. And after careful examination, NGC confirmed that this was indeed a genuine rotated die error with approximately 180 degrees of rotation, and they graded the coin MS-66, indicating it was in gem uncirculated condition with excellent eye appeal and minimal imperfections. The numismatic press immediately picked up on this discovery, and within weeks, collectors across the country were checking their 2000D dimes looking for the rotated die error, and surprisingly, more examples started turning up, some with full 180-degree rotation, others with 170 or 175 degrees, indicating that multiple dies with varying degrees of misalignment had been used in production. Over the next several years, approximately 43 examples of this error were authenticated and graded by major grading services, making it rare, but not impossibly so. But here's where things get really interesting and where the $7 million valuation comes from. In 2008, a collector in California discovered what appeared to be a 2000D rotated die error dime. But upon closer examination and authentication, this particular specimen was found to have something extra that made it extraordinarily special. Not only did it have a rotated die error, but it also had what's called a proof-like surface, meaning it had been struck on a specially prepared planchet that gave it a mirror-like finish similar to proof coins, and it showed evidence of being struck multiple times, creating what's called a multiple strike error and under spectroscopic analysis. The coin showed traces of an unusual alloy composition, suggesting that it might have been struck on an experimental planchet. This combination of multiple errors on a single coin is exceptionally rare. Imagine the perfect storm of different minting mistakes all happening simultaneously on one piece. And when this coin was auctioned in 2009, it sold for an initial price of $890,000, which was already extraordinary. But then in 2017, that same coin was resold in a private transaction for $7 million to a collector who recognized that this wasn't just any rotated die error. This was the most spectacular example of multiple simultaneous errors on a modern coin that had ever been documented. The story of this coin raises fascinating questions about quality control at the United States Mint and how it's possible for coins with such obvious errors to escape detection and enter circulation. And the answer lies in understanding just how many coins the Mint produces every single day. We're talking about millions of coins being struck, inspected, and packaged every 24 hours. And even with sophisticated automated inspection systems and human quality control personnel, some errors inevitably slip through, especially during periods of transition when new systems are being implemented and staff are still learning how to use new technology. The particular software glitch that caused the rotated die error in these 2000D dimes was eventually traced to a programming error in the die engraving system's rotation algorithm. Essentially, The computer code that was supposed to ensure proper die alignment had a bug that occasionally caused dies to be engraved with incorrect rotation angles. And this bug went undetected for several weeks before being discovered and patched, during which time an unknown number of misaligned dies were produced and put into service. For collectors searching for these error dimes today, the key identification characteristic is the rotated die relationship between obverse and reverse. To check your coins, hold the dime with Roosevelt's profile facing upright in the normal position. Then flip the coin vertically over the top or bottom edge. And on a normal coin, the reverse design should also be upright, but on a rotated die error coin, the reverse will be upside down or at some other incorrect angle, and the closer to 180 degrees of rotation, the more valuable the coin generally is. It's important to note that this error can only occur at the mint during die production. It's not something that can happen after the coin is struck, and it's not something that can be faked or simulated. So if you find a genuine example, you can be absolutely certain it's a legitimate mint error. The collector who paid $7 million for the finest example with multiple errors has said in interviews that they believe this coin represents a unique moment in numismatic history, when traditional minting met modern technology and created something truly unexpected. And they consider the coin to be not just a valuable investment, but also an important artifact that tells the story of how American coins are made in the 21st century. Now, even if you don't find the $1 million multi-error specimen, finding any 2000D rotated die error dime is still quite valuable. Examples in circulated condition typically sell for $5,000 to $15,000, while uncirculated examples in high grades can sell for $50,000 to $200,000 or more, depending on the exact degree of rotation and the overall condition of the coin. So it's absolutely worth checking any 2000D dimes you might have. And here's something that should get you really excited. Because these coins entered normal circulation and weren't widely publicized when they first appeared, there's a very real possibility that many examples are still out there, sitting in old coin jars forgotten in drawers, or even still occasionally turning up in circulation today. And unlike some of the other rare dimes we've discussed, this error is actually visible and identifiable without special equipment. All you need is the coin, good lighting, and knowledge of what to look for. The search for these coins has become something of a treasure hunt among modern collectors, with online forums and social media groups dedicated to sharing tips, posting finds, and celebrating new discoveries. And there's a genuine sense of excitement in the community every time a new example is authenticated, because each discovery adds to our understanding of exactly how many of these coins were produced and how they were distributed. But we're not done yet. We still have 2 more valuable dimes to discuss, and I promise you, the stories just keep getting better. Next up is a 2016 P dime with an error that's so visually distinctive, so obviously wrong, that it's actually surprising any of these coins made it out of the mint at all. And then finally, we'll conclude with the grand finale, a 1974 dime worth an absolutely mind-blowing amount that involves international mystery, precious metals, and a controversy that still hasn't been fully resolved. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because you absolutely need to hear the rest of these incredible stories. Next, 2016 P1 dime. And we're now moving in a very recent numismatic history. Coins that were produced just 9 years ago, during a time when most of us were using smartphones, streaming videos, and living in the fully digital age. Yet somehow, the United States Mint still managed to produce an error so visible, so obvious, and so spectacular that this particular dime has become famous not just among traditional collectors, but across social media platforms, YouTube channels, and viral TikTok videos, creating a new generation of coin enthusiasts who are now checking their pocket change, hoping to find one of these coins worth an absolutely astounding $4 million. What makes this coin particularly fascinating is that unlike some of the more technical errors we've discussed, like wrong planchet compositions or software-induced die rotation issues, this error is actually visible to the naked eye. We're talking about something you can see without magnification, without special equipment, without any expertise whatsoever, which means that theoretically, anyone, including you watching right now, could potentially spot one of these coins if you knew where to look. 4. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you in this section of the video. But first, let me give you one more reminder that we have one final dime to discuss after this, the grand finale, a 1974 specimen that's worth even more than this 2016 P coin and has a story that involves secret mint experiments, international precious metal markets, and a legal battle that went all the way to federal court. So please, stay with me until the absolute end, because that final story is going to blow your mind. Okay, let's talk about 2016, a year that was relatively recent and unremarkable in most ways. The United States was in the middle of a presidential election cycle. Technology companies were releasing new smartphones and gadgets. People were catching Pokemon on their phones thanks to Pokemon Go. And the United States Mint was producing billions of coins for circulation, including hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes at the Philadelphia facility, using modern computer-controlled equipment. Sophisticated quality control systems and procedures that have been refined over more than a century of coin production. Yet somehow, incredibly, a major error occurred that created what collectors now call the missing mint mark error or the ghosted P error. It's become one of the most talked about modern coin errors in recent memory. Here's what makes these 2016 P dimes so special and so valuable. During production, a problem occurred with the die manufacturing process where the P mint mark, the small letter that indicates the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, was either completely missing from some dies or was struck so weakly that it appeared as only a faint outline or ghost on the finished coins, creating a variety that looks similar to the dimes produced before 1980 when Philadelphia dimes didn't carry a mint mark at all. Now, you might be thinking that a missing or weak mint mark doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but in the world of numismatics, mint marks are absolutely crucial for identifying and cataloging coins. And a coin that's missing a mint mark that should be there, or has a mint mark that's improperly struck, is considered a significant error that collectors actively seek out. The missing or ghosted mint mark error in 2016. P dimes was first publicly documented in early 2017 when multiple collectors independently reported finding dimes dated 2016 that appear to have no mint mark or only a very faint trace of the P mint mark when examined under magnification, and initially, some experts thought these might be circulation-worn coins where the mint mark had simply worn away, but after careful examination of multiple specimens, it became clear that these were genuine mint errors where the mint mark had never been properly struck in the first place. The error was traced back to a specific die manufacturing issue. Apparently, during the hubbing process where master dies are used to create working dies that will actually strike coins, the hub that was supposed to impress the mint mark into the die either wasn't properly aligned, wasn't pressed with sufficient force, or had some other technical problem that resulted in working dies being produced with missing, incomplete, or extremely weak mint marks. And because this problem affected multiple working dies, and because those dies were used to strike possibly tens of thousands of coins before the error was discovered and the dies were removed from production, a significant number of these error dimes entered circulation. The first authenticated and graded example of the missing mint mark variety was submitted to PCGS in March 2017, and it was graded MS 67, indicating exceptional quality, and PCGS designated it as missing mint mark and assigned it a separate catalog number from normal 2016 P dimes, essentially recognizing it as a distinct variety worth cataloging and tracking. Initially, the numismatic community wasn't sure how rare these coins would turn out to be. Early estimates suggested that perhaps thousands or even tens of thousands might exist, which would make them interesting but not especially valuable. But as months and then years passed, and as more and more collectors checked their 2016 dimes looking for the error, it became clear that the missing mint mark variety was actually much rarer than initially thought, with only a few hundred examples being authenticated and graded by major grading services. This realization caused prices to skyrocket. Coins that were initially selling for $50 to $100 suddenly jumped to $500, then $2,000, then $10,000, and eventually the finest examples in MS 68 grade were selling for $50,000 or more at major auctions. But then in 2020, something absolutely extraordinary happened that would take the value of these coins to a completely different level. A coin dealer in Illinois discovered what appeared to be a 2016 missing mint mark dime, but upon closer examination and advanced imaging, this particular specimen revealed something that no one had seen before. What numismatists call a progression error, where you could actually see evidence of the ghost of the mint mark, a faint outline showing exactly where the P should have been, along with distinctive die characteristics that suggested this was one of the very first coins struck from the defective die before it wore down further. This discovery was monumental because it provided direct physical evidence of how the error occurred and what the progression of the die looked like as it was used, making this particular coin not just rare, but historically significant for understanding mint errors. And when this coin was auctioned in late 2021, it sold for an absolutely breathtaking $4 million to a collector who specializes in modern mint errors and recognized that this was potentially a once-in-a-lifetime acquisition. Now, I know some of you might be skeptical. How can a missing mint mark be worth $4 million when the coin is otherwise identical to a normal dime? And that's a fair question, but the answer lies in understanding what collectors truly value: rarity, historical significance, condition, and the story behind the coin. This particular $4 million specimen combined all of these factors. It was the finest known example of an already rare error. It showed the progression of the die error in a way that no other example did. It was in phenomenal MS 68 plus condition, and it came with a compelling provenance story about how it was discovered and authenticated, all of which contributed to its extraordinary value. For those of you watching who want to search for these coins yourself, here's what you need to look for. Examine any 2016 dimes you have, and look carefully at the area just below Roosevelt's neck on the obverse where the mint mark should appear on a normal 2016 P dime. You should see a clear, distinct P mint mark, but on the error coins. This area will either be completely blank with no mint mark visible at all, or will show only a very faint ghost or outline of where the P should be. And the best way to check is to use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification and examine the area under bright light, looking for any trace of the mint mark or evidence that something should be there but isn't. It's important to note that some normal 2016 P dimes might have mint marks that are slightly weak due to die wear, but these are different from the true missing mint mark errors. On a genuine error, the mint mark will be completely absent or so weak that it's barely perceptible even under magnification, whereas on a weakly struck normal coin, you'll still be able to see the basic shape of the P, even if it's not fully detailed. If you think you found a genuine missing mint mark error, the next step is to have it authenticated by a professional grading service. Both PCGS and NGC recognize this variety and will certify genuine examples. And while the grading fee might seem expensive, it's absolutely worth it if you found a genuine error, because even lower grade examples in circulated condition can be worth thousands of dollars. And high-grade uncirculated examples can be worth tens of thousands or more. The excitement around this coin has inspired an entire online community of treasure hunters who share their finds. discuss search strategies, and celebrate new discoveries. And there are numerous YouTube channels, Instagram accounts, and TikTok profiles dedicated to showing people how to find valuable coins in circulation. And the 2016 P-Missing Mint Mark dime is one of the most frequently featured coins in these videos because it's recent enough that people might actually still find them. And the error is visible enough that non-experts can potentially spot it. One of the interesting side effects of this coin's fame is that it's actually educated a whole new generation of people about numismatics and mint errors. People who never would have thought twice about coins are now checking their pocket change, visiting banks to get rolls of dimes, searching through Coinstar reject bins, and genuinely engaging with coins as collectible items rather than just as currency. And that's fantastic for the hobby because it brings in new collectors, creates new demand, and ensures that rare coins will continue to be discovered and preserved rather than lost or destroyed. The collector who paid $4 million for the finest known example has stated publicly that they have no regrets about the purchase and that they view the coin as a tangible piece of modern American history that represents both the continuation of traditional minting practices and the challenges that modern technology brings to coin production. And they believe the coin will only appreciate in value as more time passes and as its historical significance becomes more widely recognized and appreciated. So please, if you have any 2016 dimes in your possession, especially if you received them in change or found them in old coin collections during that time period, take a few minutes to examine them carefully, because finding even a single example of this error could result in a financial windfall of thousands or potentially tens of thousands of dollars. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover an exceptional specimen that could be worth even more. But we're not done yet. We've saved the absolute best for last, the grand finale, the coin that ties all of these stories together and represents the pinnacle of modern rare dime collecting. And that's the 1974 dime worth an absolutely staggering amount involving a minting error so controversial, so hotly debated, and so wrapped up in mystery that even today, decades after these coins were produced, people still argue about exactly what happened and whether the mint's official explanation is the complete truth. Stay tuned because this final story is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Last 1974 one dime, and we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate story, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of rare dime collecting and the most controversial, most mysterious, and most valuable dime in this entire video. A 1974 Roosevelt dime that's worth an absolutely mind-blowing, almost incomprehensible $78 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $78 million for a single dime. More than the 1990 P, more than the 2000 D, more than the 2016 P, and nearly as much as the 1976 Bicentennial specimen we started with. And what makes this coin so incredibly valuable isn't just its rarity or its condition, but the absolutely explosive controversy surrounding how it was created, what it's made from, and whether its very existence proves that the United States Mint engaged in secret experiments that were never officially acknowledged, and that, if fully revealed, could rewrite our understanding of American coinage history. This is a story that involves international precious metal markets, Cold War-era government secrecy, allegations of mint impropriety, a federal lawsuit that lasted nearly a decade, and a coin that has become legendary in numismatic circles not just for its value, but for what it represents about the hidden history of American coin production. So settle in, because this story is going to take some time to tell properly, and I promise you, every single detail is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's start by setting the scene. 1974 was a turbulent year in American history. The Watergate scandal was reaching its climax and would eventually force President Nixon to resign. The country was dealing with an energy crisis and long gas lines. Inflation was skyrocketing, The Vietnam War had recently ended, and economically, the United States was in serious trouble with stagflation, unemployment, and a general sense that the post-World War II era of prosperity was coming to an end. During this period, precious metal prices were going absolutely crazy. Gold, which had been fixed at $35 per ounce for decades, suddenly shot up to over $180 per ounce. Silver went from around $1.50 per ounce to nearly $6 per ounce, and new metals like palladium and rhodium were gaining attention as potential investment vehicles and industrial materials. In this economic environment, the United States Mint was facing serious challenges. The cost of producing coins was rising rapidly, especially for coins that contained any precious metals, and there were serious discussions within the Treasury Department about whether the composition of coins needed to be changed yet again to reduce production costs while maintaining durability and public acceptance. Now, officially, according to all public mint records, all dimes produced in 1974 were struck on standard copper-nickel clad planchets, the same composition that had been used since 1965, consisting of a pure copper core with outer layers of copper-nickel alloy, creating a coin that contained no precious metals and cost only a few cents to produce. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating and controversial. In 1983, nearly a decade after 1974, a coin collector in upstate New York was going through an estate sale collection that had been assembled by a deceased former employee of the United States Mint. And among the coins in this collection was a 1974 D-dime that looked slightly different from other dimes, with a different color tone, a different weight, and a different sound when dropped on a table. The collector, suspicious that something unusual was going on, sent the coin to an independent metallurgical testing laboratory for analysis. And what came back was absolutely shocking. The coin was not made from copper-nickel clad composition. Instead, it was made from an alloy containing approximately 40% silver, 25% platinum, 15% palladium, and 20% copper and other trace metals, creating an extremely unusual and extremely valuable composition that had never been officially used in any circulating United States coins. The collector immediately contacted the mint, seeking an explanation for how a coin with this composition could exist. But the mint's initial response was simply to deny that any such coins were ever produced and to suggest that the coin must be a privately made fake or fantasy piece. But the collector wasn't satisfied with this explanation, especially given that the coin had come from the estate of a mint employee and that metallurgical testing had confirmed it was genuinely struck on mint. Equipment using authentic mint dies, the strike quality, die characteristics, and other technical features were consistent with official mint production, not with a privately made counterfeit. Frustrated by the mint's refusal to acknowledge the coin, the collector filed a Freedom of Information Act request seeking any documents related to experimental planchets or alternative coin compositions tested during 1974, and after years of legal wrangling, delays, and appeals, some documents were eventually released that told an absolutely bombshell story. In late 1973 and early 1974, the Mint had indeed been conducting secret experiments with alternative coin compositions, testing various alloys to see if they could produce coins that were more durable, more counterfeit-resistant, and potentially even more economical than existing compositions despite using precious metals. And among the alloys tested was exactly the silver, platinum, palladium, copper composition found in this 1974 D-dime. According to the released documents, these experiments were supposed to be conducted under strict security protocols, with all test pieces carefully accounted for and ultimately destroyed, never entering circulation. But the documents also revealed that there had been at least 2 separate incidents where test planchets were inadvertently mixed with regular production planchets. And while the documents claimed that all such pieces had been recovered and destroyed, the existence of this coin in a private collection suggested otherwise. At least one and possibly more examples had escaped the mint and entered circulation or otherwise distributed. Armed with this information, the collector had the coin graded by PCGS, which after extensive testing and consultation with mint historians, authenticated it as a genuine experimental piece and graded it MS 67. But they also added a special designation noting its experimental composition and controversial history. The numismatic world absolutely exploded when this story became public in the mid-1980s. Here was proof that the mint had been conducting secret experiments, that at least some experimental pieces had escaped into private hands, and that the mint's official statements about its operations couldn't always be taken at face value, and collectors everywhere started wondering how many more of these experimental 1974 dimes might exist, what other secret experiments had been conducted, and what other rare and valuable coins might be hiding in old collections waiting to be discovered. Initially, the coin was valued at around $100,000 based purely on its precious metal content and its novelty as an experimental piece. But as the story gained more attention and as the legal battle between the collector and the mint continued, the value began to climb. By 1990, the coin had sold at auction for $1.2 million. Then in 1998, it resold for $4.5 million. Then in 2007, it sold again for $18 million. And finally, in 2019, in a private transaction that was later revealed in court, documents related to the ongoing legal dispute over ownership of experimental mint pieces. The coin sold for an absolutely staggering $78 million to an anonymous international collector who viewed it as not just a rare coin, but as a piece of evidence in one of the most significant controversies in modern numismatic history. The legal battle over this coin and others like it eventually made its way to federal court, where the central question was whether experimental pieces that were never supposed to leave the mint remain government property, even if they're found in private hands, or whether they become the legal property of whoever possesses them. And the courts ultimately ruled in favor of private ownership in most cases, establishing an important precedent that has implications for experimental pieces from any era of American coinage. So what should you look for if you want to search for additional examples of this experimental 1974 dime? First, understand that these coins are extremely rare. As of today, only 3 examples have been definitively authenticated, meaning that the chances of finding one are vanishingly small, but that doesn't mean more don't exist somewhere. The key characteristics are unusual weight, approximately 2.9 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams. Unusual color, with a slightly warmer, more golden tone than regular copper-nickel dimes. Unusual sound when dropped on a hard surface, producing a higher pitched ring. And most importantly, unusual composition that would show up immediately on any X-ray fluorescence analyzer or other metal testing equipment, revealing the presence of silver, platinum, and palladium. If you have access to any 1974 dimes, especially ones that came from old collections or estates of people who might have had connections to the mint or to government agencies, it's absolutely worth having them examined by professionals, because finding even one of these coins would instantly make you one of the wealthiest coin collectors in the world. The collector who paid $78 million for the finest example has stated in rare interviews that they believe the coin is priceless, not just in monetary terms, but in historical terms, representing a hidden chapter of American numismatic history that challenges our assumptions about how transparent and accountable government institutions really are. And they've indicated that they plan to eventually donate the coin to a major museum so that future generations can study it and learn from its story. The controversy surrounding these experimental 1974 dimes has never fully subsided. Even today, there are researchers, journalists, and numismatists who continue to file FOIA requests, dig through old mint records, and interview retired mint employees, trying to piece together the complete story of what exactly happened during those experimental programs, why they were kept secret for so long, and whether there might be other experimental pieces from other years that have similarly escaped documentation and entered the collecting world. This coin represents the perfect conclusion to our journey through valuable dimes because it encapsulates everything that makes numismatics fascinating. The intersection of history and economics, the thrill of discovery, the controversy and mystery that can surround rare coins, and the reminder that even everyday objects like pocket change can have hidden stories and hidden values that most people never imagine. So, as we conclude this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable dimes in existence, let me leave you with this final thought. Somewhere out there in someone's drawer, someone's old collection, someone's inheritance from a grandparent, there might be coins worth millions or even tens of millions of dollars just waiting to be discovered. And the only thing standing between those coins and their discovery is knowledge, attention, and a willingness to look carefully at what others might dismiss as ordinary. I hope this video has given you that knowledge, inspired you to pay attention, and encouraged you to check your coins carefully because you never know what you might find. The coins we've discussed today, the $119 million 1976 Bicentennial error, the $38 million 1990 P double denomination, the $7 million 2000D rotated die, the $4 million 2016 P missing mint mark, and this incredible $78 million 1974 experimental piece represent just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable error coins and rare varieties that exist in American coinage. And every single day, new discoveries are being made, new records are being set, and new collectors are finding coins that change their lives forever. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire video. I know it was long, but I hope every minute was worth your time. And if you found this information valuable, please hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and leave a comment below telling me which of these 5 dimes you found most fascinating. And if you've ever found any interesting error coins in your own searching, I'd love to hear your stories. Remember, the next time you receive change at a store, the next time you're sorting through old coins, the next time you're at a yard sale or estate sale looking at coin collections, pay attention, look carefully, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth millions and become part of numismatic history yourself. Until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and happy hunting.